we've actually studied the site. We found instances in which, let's take restaurant A, which has 30 reviews and a 5-star average rating. And restaurant B has 30 reviews and a 4-star average rating. Guess which one gets more eyeballs? The 4-star review, exactly. Because people want a more complex picture. They don't want to read a bunch of reviews that look like they were written by your mom and your sister. They want something that reflects reality. And so you actually get more traffic. I'll put an asterisk by the statement, but you get more traffic if you have a few negative reviews alongside your positive reviews, which is sort of an interesting phenomenon. So how does Yelp break down? Yelp is all about local businesses. What kind of local businesses are represented on Yelp? So in terms of businesses reviewed, the biggest category is restaurants. That's probably not surprising to most of you. The next largest is shopping, retail, and then you sort of have everything else on the side. The other 50% being beauty and fitness, arts and entertainment, nightlife, health, travel, and then there's this big other category that a lot of things fall into. So if you're unsure about what your business category falls into, you can, when you're setting up your business page, there's a sort of category menu, and you can navigate and browse around that and try to find the bucket that you fall into. And if you don't find that bucket, please send an email to us, because we're always adding new categories based on how we expand. I think we have an archery schools category, which is kind of weird to me. Sorry if anybody teaches archery, but it seems like a really obscure, weird category to have. So we have over 15 million reviews on the site. We're the top local review site in the U.S. How many of you have ever noticed a review disappear from your business page inexplicably? Great. So sometimes that'll happen, and there's 3 reasons that will happen. But before I list these, I just want to take a step back and say, one of the most common questions I get, it's like, oh, you work for Yelp, the online review site. It's almost always the follow-up is, yeah, what stops people from just going on and writing fake reviews about businesses? And I think another way to phrase that question is, what does Yelp do to protect business owners from what they feel are unfair reviews? And there's a number of things. The first, and something I'm going to go over in a second, is that businesses have the ability to respond privately or publicly to those reviews for free. The second is that we have review guidelines in place, and that's what basically this falls into, is that if I can't get on a business page, a salon page, and say I'm giving this salon a 1-star review because they gave my girlfriend a terrible haircut. First of all, I'd probably get my butt kicked if I express that opinion publicly, but also the fact that it's not a first-hand account. My girlfriend can write that review. She can say, I'm giving a salon about one-star review because they gave me a horrible haircut, but I can't say that. And if that's self-evident within the review, then we will actually have a human being on our team pull that review down. Another example of violating review guidelines is flagrant hate speech. I can't get on and start using racial slurs in my reviews, for example. Yelp is an online community, and really there's no place for that in our mind, and so we'll pull that off. But I would say, by and large, this is fairly rare. Often businesses feel like a review should violate our guidelines, and it doesn't. And sometimes there's really tough situations. I actually dealt with this situation last week, and it was a psychiatrist who had a 1-star review from one of her patients. And he was making a claim that we couldn't verify, and she was making a claim that we couldn't verify. And so our position in a case like that often is, we have to let the review stand. We don't want to silence the consumer because it's a bit of a slippery slope. So that said, if you feel that there's a review that you feel is questionable and may violate the guidelines, you can always go to yelp.com/guidelines and check those out, or you can flag it and send it to us, and a human being will review it. So that will sometimes cause a review to come down as it violates review guidelines. Another reason a review can come down is the user can pull off the review. So this will happen sometimes when businesses, when they respond and say, hey, sorry you didn't have a 5-star experience, the user says, okay, you know what, I think there's a misunderstanding. I feel bad about having this review up here. I'm going to pull it off. And they just decide to take that review with them. The third reason a review will come down, it probably is the basis of the most confusion and conspiracies about Yelp, is that we actually have an algorithm, a software that goes through our site every single day and it looks at all 15 million reviews. And it says of that review, of the reviewer, how established is this user? And if the user is not super established today, then I'm not going to display that review on the business page. So just say that again. We have a spam algorithm, a review filter, that goes through every single review, all 15 million plus reviews every single day, and asks of that reviewer, how established is this user? If they're not super established, then let's not display that review on the business page. Let's put it in a filtered review bucket. So people can go read the filtered reviews, but we don't want them by default living on the business page. Now this is kind of complicated and cerebral, but here's what it does. Is it makes sure that car mechanic A can't write fake reviews about car mechanic B, or that if he does, that review is going to get flushed off the business page within a week. It also prevents the shady LASIK eye surgeon from putting a laptop in front of his secretary and saying, hey, write a bunch of fake 5-star reviews about the practice so we can get more customers in here. What we want to do is connect customers with the best information about local businesses. And so we have to, what we found is that City Search and many other sites that kind of existed before us had this laissez-faire setup. And so what happened is you had a small minority of businesses pretty much go in there and try to juke the stats and try to goose their ratings. And at the end of the day, consumers have to trust wherever they're looking at in order for the site to succeed. So we've taken this pretty aggressive approach when it comes to spam. And one of the implications of this is that legit reviews get filtered all the time. You will have customers who have written that reflect totally legitimate experiences, writing reviews about your business, and it'll land on your business page, and a couple weeks later it may not be there anymore. Maybe that filtered review bucket, simply because the user's not established. And that's going to be frustrating. But at the end of the day, we feel the sort of benefits far exceed the costs. The cost of having a laissez-faire review site, a site where people can't trust the information, means that nobody in this room wins. Yelp doesn't win, the consumer doesn't win because they get untrustworthy information, and business owners lose because they don't have hungry consumer eyeballs on their business page. So we all lose if people don't trust the system. And so this is a necessity, unfortunately, an unfortunate necessity that the system has to have this in place to maintain trust. So again, legit reviews will sometimes get filtered in that process, and one of the weird takeaways that the pieces of advice that we give from Yelp that is going to sound crazy coming from the online review site guy is don't ask your customers to write reviews about you. We actually discourage review solicitation. We do want you to engage with your reviewers, though. So if you get a negative review, what I advise doing is sort of take a deep breath, understand, again, people are going to take this with a grain of salt. Reach out to that individual, say, hey, sorry you didn't get a 5-star experience. Very often they'll go back, update that review, and change it. So here's a screenshot of what the review response feature looks like. I'll jump actually to some real examples of reviews here. Obviously, you don't want to freak out if you get a bad review. Here's a case study. Yes, this is, thank you. It's on this one-pager that's in front of you also, so that way you don't have to scribble down anything else. So here's an example of a dental office in the East Bay. I went there once after moving to Berkeley. I wanted a cleaning in order to check out the facility dentist. The minute this dentist discovered I didn't not wish a dental exam, she started trying to upsell me. So he's accusing the dentist of trying to upsell him once he got in the chair. They get out and do a public response that says, not true, Mike. You came to your office asking for a cleaning. That's what you paid for. Then you start asking the doctor about such and such too. That's in professional second opinions. The doctor asks you if you want an exam instead. Since you didn't pay for it, you're told there's a possibility they might have cavities. Going into great detail, getting really lost in the weeds in this very abrasive tone with their customer and using the public comment. And I don't want to even get into the legality, the legal implications of publicly commenting on a medical patient. Like, this is actually against the law. But it's also just not really that tasteful. It's not a tactful way to deal with this to deal with this problem. What I would have done is send a private message to Mike and say, hey, Mike, I wouldn't have had an office manager do it. I would have the dentist himself or someone that's at least saying to the dentist, saying, hey, Mike, this is the dentist. I'm really sorry that there was a miscommunication. I do recommend this procedure in certain cases, but in your case, it was iffy. And just go into a diplomatic response, apologize, and let Mike know how he can contact you directly. Often we find that users actually will go back, update their review, and change it from a 1-star to a 3-star, or 1-star to a 5-star. Now, if you are strategic about this, and you send messages to all your negative review people, even if 90% of them don't change their reviews, if 10% change, over time, your rating on the site is going to improve. And because Yelp's a local search engine, and one of the factors that goes into how we deliver search results is the rating, you want to be high. So, you got to focus on great customer service. That's 95% of it. But as far as, to ensure that your Yelp presence reflects that great customer service that you offer, it helps to engage and be part of that conversation. Another example of sort of case studies and freaking out, there was a headline by in a British newspaper a few months back talking about TripAdvisor, very similar to Yelp, but for the travel industry. And it was a bed and breakfast in England, and this couple was having, just a lousy time. And while they were staying at this bed and breakfast, wrote a 1-star review about the bed and breakfast. And the proprietor went there at 2 in the morning and banged on the door and kicked him out of the bed and breakfast. So, you don't want to do that either. So here's what I'd say is a good example of the right way to do it. So Linda's writing kind of a lousy review of this, it's a hotel in, it's like, she price-lined a Sheraton hotel in Framingham, Colorado. And what happened was, it was really, really rainy. And so the ceiling started leaking, stuff got wet. The restaurant was all right, though, and otherwise it would have been pleasant, but just the roofs leaking sort of created a 2-star experience. Completely legitimate 2-star experience. And Linda did us all a favor by telling her story about this. Well, Alyssa, who manages the social media presence of this Sheraton, said, "Hey, Linda, thank you for taking the time to share your feedback. You definitely are visiting during a tough weather week, but we've had the entire roof replaced since your visit, so future rainy days will be nice and cozy at our hotel." And then she does something cool that I really like, that she takes what was positive out of Linda's review and actually incorporates it into her response. "I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed our health club and the biscuit mollies. We're in the process of creating new menus for our restaurant, so I'll share your positive review." I mean, this is a negative review. "I'll share your positive review with our chef, along with your great feedback about our staff. Hope to see you again soon. Please contact me if I can help you in any way." So great diplomatic response. And Linda didn't go back and change the review, but guess what? It doesn't matter. Alyssa is not talking to Linda here. Alyssa's talking to the probably 300 people a month that are sitting there reading Linda's review and notice, oh, Alyssa rebutted this. Let's see what Alyssa had to say about this experience. So, a couple takeaways. You have an important voice on Yelp and you should use it, especially if you feel like there's something factually inaccurate or something that needs to be addressed, like a temporary roof leak. You should by all means get on there and address it. And this is a great chance to kind of put your best foot forward and show that you're a great business owner in a public forum. So, I said this, don't ask for reviews again, because what happens is it's tough for us as people who are creating algorithms and spam software to filter reviews where there's an obvious bias involved. It's tough for us to tell one way to put this is, it's very difficult to tell the difference between somebody who's stuck a laptop in front of 50 of their clients in one day and said, "Hey, write a 5-star review about me on Yelp." Or write about your great experience, except, of course, skip the guy that you think there's any chance you might write a negative review. It's tough to tell the difference between that guy and the same guy who just flips the laptop around and just writes the fake reviews about himself. And that's why we have to have the mechanisms in place. And so the weird implication here is don't ask for reviews. You can say, check us out on Yelp. Hey, here's a link to my Yelp page in your subject line, but to actually have the verb, write a review about me, it just ends up driving you crazy because they end up getting filtered. So this is what a fully kind of built out free business page on Yelp looks like. You can upload photos, unlimited number of photos. If you're a restaurant, you can upload your menu. You can correct your business hours, let folks know, when you're open, various attributes of your business page, whether you accept credit cards, if you're by appointment only, things like this. Announce special offers. This is a really great tool. It's basically